The following podcast is non-profit and is based on the IGCSE history curriculum. How did the Soviets take over Eastern Europe? In this episode, that is the topic we will be discussing. The Soviets had taken over the Eastern Europe by 1948 after they began taking over near the end of the Second World War. There were 3 steps that the Soviets used to take over Eastern Europe. Firstly, the Red Army set up anti-Nazi governments in the countries which they had liberated and gave local communists control of the government. Secondly, rigged elections were held to make sure the communist government stayed in power. Thirdly, opposition groups were exiled, imprisoned, or killed. The important question is, how did the United States react? Firstly, the long telegram was released by George Kennan. It stated that the main concern was that the USSR would attack the USA in an attempt to destroy the traditional way of life. Therefore, the USA should become more defensive and hostile towards them. Secondly, the Truman Doctrine. This stated the main concern was that the USSR restricts freedoms and elections, so that the USA should support the people's freedoms. One important way that the Truman Doctrine was used is in Greece from 1947 to 1950. After the Second World War, the monarchists and the communists were fighting a civil war for control of Greece. British troops who were stationed in Greece were supporting the monarchists. However, by 1947, Britain could no longer afford to keep their troops stationed in Greece, so the US paid for them to stay. By 1950, the communists had been defeated, and Greece was still under control of the monarchists. Third, the Marshall Plan, which was a speech by General George Marshall. The speech by General George Marshall stated that the main concern was the loss of life and physical destruction to Eastern Europe, and the fact that the people lacked food and were in a state of hunger, poverty, desperation, and chaos. Therefore, the USA should assist in the return of normal economic health and provide loans and financial support to the countries of Europe. Overall, as part of the European Recovery Plan or Marshall Plan, the USA provided a total of $12.5 billion to the countries which applied successfully. Meanwhile, countries which applied unsuccessfully included Spain and Switzerland. Poland and Czechoslovakia also applied, but were forced to withdraw their applications. This is most likely because they were being controlled or influenced by the Soviet Union. In response to the actions of the USA, the Soviets created 2 organizations. One was Cominform, which was a Communist Information Bureau set up in September 1947, and Comcon, or Comecon, the Council for Mutual Economic Aid, which was set up in January of 1949. It was an organization consisting of the communist countries in Europe. The Soviet Union was in charge, and they provided money and military support to the members of Comecon. In the next episode, I will be discussing how the Soviet Union were able to maintain control over countries in Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, you could send in a voice message or visit my website to get some more revision materials. This is the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening.